Diamond P Sports presents championship drag racing from the National Hot Rod Association. The 1981 U.S. Nationals. Brought to you by Goodyear Eagle High Performance Radials, the Racing Eagles Goodyear tamed for the streets. And by Budweiser, for all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Suzuki, the Performer. See the full line of Suzuki motorcycles at your local Suzuki dealer. Every year, a migration takes place. Racers and fans converging on the largest, most spectacular championship drag racing event ever staged, the U.S. Nationals. Indianapolis Raceway Park jammed to overflowing with over 1,000 racers trying to write their names in the record books. The qualifying action over the past several days has left the packed grandstands in a state of shock as records and standards have fallen in every category of competition. Top Fuel Eliminator, a field of 16 cars, the quickest qualifying times in the history of drag racing, led by Gary Beck's record-tying 5.63-second elapsed time. In funny car qualifying, everyone was stunned by the times. At most events, you'll see maybe one or two of the top racers break into that magic 5-second zone. Here at the U.S. Nationals, 6 cars qualified in less than 6 seconds. Number 1, Raymond Beadle's 5.91-second elapsed time. Pro Stock finds the story the same. More records tumbling as the nation's best racers performed with such amazing times that the 16-car field goes into the books as the quickest ever assembled. Working with me is Steve Evans, and he has another look at the frantic pace.
Dave, the big story so far in this U.S. Nationals is performance, but the kind of performance that few would have forecasted. We'll let the finish line scoreboards tell the story. The number 1 qualifier in Top Fuel Eliminator is Gary Beck. At 5.63 seconds, that ties the all-time NHRA national record. But really, the big story is the 16th qualifier, the slowest car in the field, at 5.78 seconds. That breaks a record set 5 years ago. The big story now, the question everyone is asking, is can this racetrack, after 4 days of abuse and facing a hot day today, still produce this kind of performance?
Steve, part of that question was answered earlier today in the first round of Top Fuel competition as the defending world champion, Shirley Muldowney, tangled with that number 16 qualifier, Mark Oswald, the driver for the team of Thomas, Oswald, and Cattleman. Shirley had experienced a great deal of difficulty in qualifying. She suffered severe engine problems on a couple of runs, but thought she had them all worked out in time for this first round race, and the engine exploded at the finish line, but she still won the race and answered our questions about the track and its performance. 5.74 seconds, very, very strong for Shirley Muldowney, but the engine exploded just as the car crossed the finish line. A ball of flame came out of the car as the oil hit the hot headers. Parts bounced down the racetrack. Shirley climbed out of the car to survey the extent of the damage. Steve Evans talked with Ron Tobler, her crew chief.
This is Ron Tobler, Shirley Muldowney's chief mechanic, and you're sitting here, you're not even hurrying to go back to the pit, so obviously you're not coming back for round 2.
No, Steve, we can't. We have, we've got some kind of problem that's indescribable. I mean, we haven't broke this many motors in the last 3 years total, and now we break 3 here. We have some kind of problem with the, we just happened to get a new batch of rod bearings when we came to this race, and ever since we've been putting them in, we've had problems.
And Shirley also mentioned a faulty tool, a torque wrench.
Right, we had the faulty tool, and we found that, and we kind of thought that was our problem, but apparently it wasn't, because we put this motor together with the right wrench, and it slung 4 rods off of it, and that's just not right.
Shirley Muldowney out of competition after the first round. Another incredible story at the Nationals. And that's the way it's been for 6 long days, one incredible story after another. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and this history-making U.S. Nationals will continue in just a moment with the start of the second round of Top Fuel Eliminator.
At Suzuki, we believe performance is more than an awesome display of power. More than precise handling. More than superb fuel economy. And more than comfort and reliability. At Suzuki, we believe performance is all of these things. That's why Suzuki bikes are all-around performers.
Displays of power and speed on any racetrack. We're in Top Fuel Eliminations, round number 2, and we have a pair of the finest cars in the country. The defending national champion, Terry Kapp, is in the near lane. The two-time national champion, Gary Beck, in the far lane. Let's watch as Terry Kapp does what's described as a burnout. I don't think anyone will question why do they call it a burnout. Look at the smoke just rolling off those rear tires. Tremendous amounts of heat being generated, the rubber being hot, sticks to the ground better, and hopefully will give Kapp the traction he needs to beat Gary Beck. But that's going to be a tough assignment. The number 1 qualifier is Beck, and we ask Kapp, what's he done to try to beat him?
We've cranked it up. We're going to go for the throat this round. We normally take a quite conservative view of racing and getting back to the next round without doing too much work, but we're getting brutal with it, and it's gonna fly.
It was 1 year ago that Terry Kapp won the most prestigious title of them all, U.S. Nationals champion. For Gary Beck, he's been in that winner's circle twice, but he knows he's got a tough competitor up against Terry Kapp. Earlier, we asked him, what are his plans?
We're richening the motor up a little bit to race our good pal Kapp over there, and they ran a good ET, and I'm sure they're going to remember Columbus a few months back, and when they had us covered and shoot a good shot at us. It's going to be a tough race.
All the plans go by the wayside now as the full concentration of both drivers is on the Christmas tree starting device. You see some smoke starting to come out of the engine of Terry Kapp's car. That may be a problem. You don't know, though, until they apply full power to it when the tree goes green. It is Gary Beck and Terry Kapp off side by side, and it is Terry Kapp extending the lead. He cost him a motor, but he won the race. 5.82 seconds. His speed only 226 miles an hour, and you heard Kapp say they had really hopped it up, and he did everything he had to do to beat the low qualifier, Gary Beck. Here in the lights, you see the smoke coming out of the engine, and there goes the supercharger off Gary Beck's car. He again experienced engine problems. The supercharger bouncing along the side of the track. The emergency crew putting the supercharger device back on top of the engine as they now push Gary Beck's car off to the return road area. No injury to Beck or to Kapp as Kapp surveys the damage done to his engine in that big second round win over the low qualifier, Gary Beck. Our next pair of cars, Dwight Salisbury in the near lane, the number 2 qualifier. Driving for Ray Fisher. Fisher out of Riverside, California. Dwight Salisbury hails from Van Nuys. He'll be racing one of the Texas contingent in competition here. David Pace drives the Carroll Brothers car out of Dallas, Texas. Pace, coming up through the ranks over the years, is the latest in a series of fine drivers in the Carroll Brothers car. Ray Fisher, new on the drag racing scene over the past few seasons, has got one of the finest West Coast drivers at the wheel of his car. That is Dwight Salisbury. The rudimentary controls in the hands of Salisbury as he rolls into the staging beams. Both cars respond to the green light, and David Pace just pulls away. 5.86 seconds. His speed as he crossed the finish line, 250 miles an hour for David Pace, and an elated crew member as the Carroll brothers record their first ever 250-mile-an-hour run. The next car on the track, Connie Kalita. He will receive a bye or a single run. He was to have run Shirley Muldowney, but we saw her go out earlier with engine problems. We had a chance to talk to Connie, and we asked him, how does it feel to get the single at the expense of Shirley?
Well, I sure would like to race her. I've raced her here 3 or 4 times so far, and it's always been a good race. I've never whipped her here, but it was always close. It was within a wheel. It was a close shave race every time we've raced here at Indy.
So for Connie, he is getting the directions from his crew chief, pulling into the proper point at the starting line. He will take a single. The question is now, will he run it hard, or will this just be an easy run for him? He has his choice. Lane choice in the next round will go to the car with the lower elapsed time of the pair that are racing. So we may find Connie Kalitta trying to set a good low elapsed time, pulling hard on that brake, the car launching very hard, and then up in smoke as Connie Kalitta, too much power, maybe too much clutch, maybe a bit of experimentation on this single run for Connie Kalitta. Right now, Steve Evans is in the pits at Shirley Muldowney's area and is talking with her.
Losing is one thing, but winning and not being able to go back into the staging lanes has got to be an even more frustrating emotion.
Never had that happen before.
How does it feel?
It doesn't feel very good. We've all worked hard, and we came here with a car very capable of winning, and we have very good pieces, and something isn't right here. We've evidently got a part that has the correct number on it, but it's the wrong part in the box, or something's wrong.
Your mechanic, Ron, said that even if he had another motor, he wouldn't put it in, that you've got to find the gremlin and stop this destruction of motors.
That's right. And Mark Danicus came over and offered one. So did Neil Marr.
To loan you a motor?
That's right. So did Dick LaHaye. But we're not ready to go racing.
But there will be another day of racing for the 2-time Top Fuel World Champion, Shirley Muldowney. Here we've got the final pair of cars in this second round of eliminations in the near lane. It is Billy Williams. Williams, hailing from Torrance, California, formerly drove alcohol dragsters, but advanced to the top fuel ranks and qualified well in this program. He'll be matched against the high country racer Johnny Abbott out of Denver, Colorado. The burnouts completed for both cars, and some problems apparently with Abbott's car as the starting line official called his crew over and pointed at something in the rear of the engine. The car is running fine. Billy Williams looking over to check on Abbott as he starts to roll forward to the starting line. Williams sitting and waiting as Abbott's crew performs whatever was the problems, fixing it, and here comes Abbott. So the final pair of our Top Fuel eliminators in the second round of eliminations here at the U.S. Nationals. The drivers concentrating on that tall device with the lights on it. That's the Christmas tree. If you leave on time, the green light stays on. If you're too early, you get a red light, you're disqualified. It's green for both drivers, and green means go for Johnny Abbott. He extends the starting line lead to a tremendous 5.70 second elapsed time. His speed, a roaring 250 miles an hour, and an elated crew. You know, drag racers are noted for their innovations in their race cars, and it obviously extends to the tow vehicles. This one's most unique. Steve Evans, give us a guided tour.
Thank you, David. In the old days, it was the cowboys chasing the stagecoach. But here at the U.S. Nationals, it's the stagecoach chasing the candy cowboy, Johnny Abbott. His tow vehicle, a motorized version of an 1870s Overland stage. Built on a 4-wheel drive chassis, it'll go about 70 miles an hour. Up here where I am, there's a full complement of instruments, a stereo as you might expect, even a computerized electric musical horn. Within the air-conditioned coach, all the necessities of comfortable motoring, indirect lighting, a color television set, sheepskin seats, and should you wish to change directions or stop for refreshments, simply pick up the telephone and communicate with the driver.
This bud's for the guys who make our engines purr like a kitten and roar like a lion.
This bud's for you, for all you do. The king of beers is coming through.
Yeah, just for you, that distinctively clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
For all you do.
This bud's for you.
Engine, unique 16-valve 4-stroke powerhouse. Suspension, multi-adjustable rear shocks. Aluminum swing-arm. And front air forks. Brakes, slotted discs. The machine, the new GS 1100. Another great performer from Suzuki.
One of the most popular classes in all forms of competition at any championship drag racing event is funny car. We're in the second round of eliminations. 8 cars remain. In the near lane, we'll be finding Dale Poldy driving for Mike Hamby, while in the far lane, it is the defending world champion Raymond Beadle from Dallas, Texas, at the wheel of the Blue Max. For Poldy, he calls California home as a traveling drag racer tours the country with this War Eagle funny car. You say, what makes a funny car? Well, primarily, it is the same drivetrain component, the nitro-burning engine, the transmission, rear-end configuration, very similar to the top fuel dragsters. The big difference is the driver and all of those components encased in a fiberglass body that is a replica of a late model car. For Beadle and Poldy, they each won in the first round, advancing here to round number 2. The Blue Max, for 2 years in a row, has been the world champion. For Dale Poldy, he broke into the 5s in qualifying, and it is Raymond Beadle off the line first, and he is continuing to march to the finish line, 5.92 seconds, and the speed, 249.30 miles an hour, the fastest anyone has ever run in a funny car, and he's got a new national record. Raymond Beadle at over 249 miles an hour in the Blue Max as he roundly defeats Dale Poldy here in the second round of eliminations. The engine smoking as Steve Evans walks up to Ray Beadle.
Raymond Beadle comes out, Dave, and he says, that's a good one there. Let's get the helmet off, and let me tell you how good it really was. You're not going to believe this. You just traveled a quarter mile faster than any man has ever done it. 249 miles an hour, 5.92 seconds. It feel that good?
It was a good run. I knew it was really good. Car left hard that time, and it moved hard through the middle, so and it run good on the top end, didn't lay over, and we didn't hurt it, so we knew we made a good run.
Now, NHRA requires a 1% backup on a record. Do you have a previous run that would back that up, do you think?
We run 246. I don't know if that backs it up.
It might do it.
Okay.
And bonus World Championship points as well for a new record if you did it.
We need all we can get.
Steve, a quick check with the officials reveal that the 246 is not good enough to back up that 249-mile-an-hour run. We'll keep our eyes on Ray Beadle in the later rounds to see if he can back up that record. Right now, Tom Hovland out of the Corn Belt of Iowa from Mason City will be going up against Jim Dunn, the 46-year-old fireman from Long Beach, California. Jim Dunn's drag racing days date back into the earliest part of the sport, when he was driving cars on the West Coast known as fuel altereds at that time, little Fiats with big fuel-burning Chrysler engines in them. Jim Dunn has graduated to the top-of-the-line funny cars. He is a former Super Nationals champion. To be racing against Tom Hovland, this is one of the rare appearances of Hovland on the NHRA championship circuit, and Jim Dunn has got a lead off the starting line as Hovland's motor lets go, and it is Jim Dunn with the win, 6.20. 230 miles an hour. So as some folks say, Jim Dunn doesn't get older, he just gets better. Quick on the lights, the car tuned to perfection, and he and Hovland are matched side by side at about halfway through the racetrack. As the engine starts to let go in Hovland's car, he immediately shuts it down, and Jim Dunn takes an easy run and comes to a slowing halt at the end of the racetrack. Hovland out of his car, taking off his safety suit, the fire suit that all drivers wear in these fuel-burning classes, shaking his head as our next pair of cars already completing their burnout, Don Prudhomme to be racing against Fuzz Miller. For Miller, it was an exciting time in round number 1. As we take a look back in the first round of eliminations, it was Fuzz Miller against Gary Bergen. And you can see Bergen losing control. He goes across the racetrack and comes within inches of Fuzz Miller. We asked Fuzz, does this bother you when you're racing again?
No, that doesn't bother me at all. We're just trying to get the car to repeat. It ran a 608 followed by a 606. We didn't hurt it much at all when we ran the 08. When we ran the 06, we obviously had a little left for a loss in transmission. And now we're just going to put it back to where it should run a low O if we can get off the line without spinning the tires.
He is against the man that has been the dominant force in funny car racing for so many years, Don Prudhomme, and Fuzz Miller is going to need every 6-0 he can find. For Prudhomme, this has been a good season thus far. He is getting back on the winner's trail, and he is matched against Miller here in round number 2 of racing. Bernie Lewis, the crew chief for Fuzz Miller, checking something inside the car as they approach the starting line. For Prudhomme, he's patiently sitting and idling. Miller now into the staging beams. And a good lead, but both drivers, and Prudhomme's out of control into the guardrail. Something going wrong. He must have blown an engine. His wife, Lynn, is concerned. She shows it. Back at the starting line, Prudhomme brings the car under control. Fuzz Miller, no problem with him. He brings it to a slowing stop, and look at Prudhomme jump out of that car. First thing he does, looks underneath it and finds an exploded engine. What happened was, as he left the starting line, the engine exploded. He got into his own oil. The tires no longer had traction. And let's watch again as they leave the starting line. It is Miller in the far lane, Don Prudhomme in the bright yellow car here on the tower side. As you see, Prudhomme going out of control. He runs into the guardrail. The guardrail gives just a little bit, bounces him back on the track, and the crafty veteran brings the car back under control. Prudhomme talking to the NHRA Safety Safari crew, and he is A-OK. How about Fuzz?
You told me earlier you'd only raced Prudhomme once and you had beat him. You felt really confident about this, didn't you?
Well, I keep thinking we'll get the car to match up with the runs it was making the other day, and we're having problems because the motor was real lean that run. But we had raced him once under NHRA competition for points before.
Steve, that's one cool young race driver, Fuzz Miller. Here we have our final pair of funny cars in this round of eliminations. It will be John Pott at the wheel of Larry Kugel's Sting. They're based in Indiana, racing against the Massachusetts product, Al Segrini. From Easton, Massachusetts, Segrini brings his 81 Omni-bodied car to race against this 1980 Pontiac Trans Am body. The fiberglass bodies covering those 2,500 horsepower engines. A great start by both drivers, and they are just locked in a head-to-head battle, and it is Johnny Pott pulling it out at the last few feet, 6.22 seconds elapsed time, and a big win for John Pott at the wheel of Larry Kugel's Sting. This was one of those races just too close to call all the way down the racetrack until right at the finish line. We'll watch John Pott just pull ahead by a few feet and take the win over Al Segrini. There it is, one car length. That's all that matters. Steve Evans has had a chance to catch up with Don Prudhomme and ask him about his mishap.
Dave, we've caught up with Don Prudhomme in his pits as they get ready to load this car. And, Don, the damage to the car is surprisingly small considering how hard it appeared you hit the wall.
Yeah, actually, the exhaust headers and the left rear tire took a majority of the blow. I was quite fortunate, and that it didn't get over the guardrail. You know, lost an engine, I got my oil, and just hit the guardrail.
It's been a long time since you've made contact with anything like that.
Yeah, it has, but, you know, when you're at the Indy Nationals here and you're running all out and trying to beat guys like Beadle and Bernstein and so on, I mean, you got to step on it, and, you know, this is for keeps.
Your wife, Lynn, seemed concerned. She thought maybe you ought to be checked. You feeling all right?
I'm just fine. She's hit me harder than this.
Steve, at least Don Prudhomme has not lost his sense of humor. Here's the pairings for the semifinals. Ray Beadle against Johnny Pott, Jim Dunn against Fuzz Miller.
How do you get performance on the road?
BMW and Arriva. Datsun and Arriva.
Fiat and Arriva.
Mazda and Arriva. Saab and Arriva. Now, how do you get the performance you want?
With a showstopper like Arriva. Arriva, what a name.
Arriva, only from Goodyear.
Get tough. Protect your car with Meguiar's lifetime polysealant system. Tough protection from polymer technology and 50 years of professional car wax experience. Meguiar's, a blend of tough polymers, expensive waxes, and silicones. Get Meguiar's deep shine in one easy step. A shine so tough, we dare to give you a guarantee for the life of your car. Meguiar's in liquid or paste.
We're back at the U.S. Nationals. I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and as our Diamond P Sports camera circles high above, Steve has been on quite a search.
Dave, when you're looking for Big Jim Dunn's pit, you have to get out of Semi-City and over here in the dirt. Don't look for an 18-wheeler or even a fancy fifth-wheel trailer. Look for a little old portable generator, kind of a greasy old box that he hauls the car around in. Mainly it's his family helping out, and his young son Mike, who was beaten in the first round driving the Hawaiian, is now over giving Dad a hand. Big Jim Dunn, the classic, dedicated, old-time drag racer. Change comes slowly with these guys.
The third category of professional competition we're covering here at the U.S. Nationals is Pro Stock. We pick up action in the semifinal round where we see Bob Glidden proudly wearing the big number 1, signifying he finished number 1 in the world last season. Glidden, winning his 5th world champion title, is based in Whiteland, Indiana, just down the road from Indianapolis. He's racing John Hagen, who comes from St. Paul, Minnesota, driving a 1980 Plymouth Arrow. This has been one of the best years ever for Hagen. He has recently set the NHRA speed record for Pro Stock at over 164 miles an hour, but he'll need every bit of that power to eke out a win over Bob Glidden. Glidden, the winningest racer ever in NHRA history with 34 event victories to his credit. Off the starting line they come. The charging Pro Stockers on gasoline with carburetors. Bob Glidden wins it, 8.44 seconds, but an exceptionally close race by Hagen. The speed 160 miles an hour. As we watch once again, we'll see how close it was at the finish as the speed of Glidden pulled him ahead by about 1 car length right across the finish line. So Bob Glidden will be advancing into the finals to match up against the winner of this next race, and it will be a classic Ford versus Chevrolet battle in the final because these two cars are both Chevrolets. Lee Shepherd locked head-to-head with Glidden in the chase for the world champion title here in 1981 will be squared off against Don Coonce. Coonce, a former modified eliminator racer, coming up through the ranks, as did Lee Shepherd. Both of them trying very hard to put all of their drag racing skills to work here in the semifinals at the U.S. Nationals to win the right to face Bob Glidden in the finals for the Pro Stock Championship. Tremendous amounts of RPM from the engine as the accelerator goes to the floor and the clutch comes out, and driving around at just the last few feet is Lee Shepherd, 8.45 seconds. Glidden was quicker by 1/100th of a second. Don Coonce gave him a race to the finish line as the Coonce and Clark Camaro stayed side by side with Lee Shepherd just as long as possible, but it was Shepherd in the wheel of the Rare and Morrison car from Arlington, Texas, winning the right to face Bob Glidden in the final.
All right, well, just driving away from him is the man you're going to have to race in the final round again, Bob Glidden.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be another close one, Steve.
You think lane choice matters?
It might.
You don't have it.
Yeah, I just found that out. Well, I hope it doesn't matter.
44 to a 45, it couldn't be closer. Another classic between you two. This never gets old, does it?
No, it doesn't. It looks like it's going to be on the tree again.
Well, the fans are here. They're divided. Ford, Chevrolet, Glidden, Shepherd. And they're going to get what they came to see.
Well, I hope they see us win.
All right, the World Championship on the line again between Glidden and Shepherd.
The personable Lee Shepherd heads back to the pits to get ready for the finals. In addition to our professional category of competition, we have had sportsman eliminator run throughout the day here at the U.S. Nationals. In top alcohol dragster, it was Brian Raymer against Gary Southern. Raymer taking the big U.S. Nationals champion title. In top alcohol funny car, George Cambra raced Ken Veeney, with Veeney the winner. In the funny bike category motorcycle competition, John Ball was the winner over Jim Yodak. In top fuel motorcycle, a big upset as Terry Vance defeated Bo Obrochta. The Super Gas champion saw Don Moyer defeat Mark Powack in a close race. Competition Eliminator Champions title going to Tom Trish over Joe Williamson. Modified Eliminator Cotton Perry raced Larry Kopp, and at the finish line, Cotton Perry was the winner. Superstock Eliminator saw Ray Paquette defeat Harold Stout And in stock eliminator, Jeff Taylor took the measure of rock running for the U.S. Nationals title. Our congratulations go out to all competitors here at the U.S. Nationals and to these champions in Sportsman Eliminator.
Suzuki, the maker of motorcycles, would like you to think of an economy car and a sports car. When you think of this 1981 GS 250, it offers high gas mileage like an economy car and high performance like a sports car. Of course, when it comes to high price, the GS 250 is like nothing on four wheels. See for yourself at your Suzuki dealer.
This bud's for all the guys who keep the action from getting out of hand.
This bud's for you, for all you do. The king of beers is coming through.
Yeah, just for you, that distinctively clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
For all you do.
This bud's for you.
We're at the U.S. Nationals at Indianapolis Raceway Park and ready for the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. Under threatening skies as the dark clouds have started to move in. Not many superstar names left. Jim Dunn against Fuzz Miller. Ray Beadle, the reigning world champion, will be racing Johnny Pott. But this first pair, we see Big Jim Dunn in the far lane, the fireman from Long Beach, California. We had a chance earlier to ask Jim Dunn, are you intimidated by the big-time racers?
No, every year I come over here, and it's strictly an ego for this deal. You know we're going to lose money, but, you know, it makes me happy. Every year we come down and try to send one of them big old 18-wheelers home, and every year we send one home.
For Jim Dunn, his competitor will be Fuzz Miller, and I'm sure that Fuzz is hoping that Dunn at least keeps it in his lane and out of the guardrail. As we've seen earlier in both of the preceding rounds of competition, Fuzz Miller's opponent had the misfortune of losing control and either crossing in front or right next to him or into the guardrail. The final check by his crew chief and Fuzz Miller in the near lane in the Pandemonium car will be going off against the fireman's quickie of Jim Dunn. And it is Big Jim Dunn into the finals of the U.S. Nationals, 6.23 seconds, and his young son is overjoyed. For the 46-year-old fireman, what a thrill to make it to the finals of this 27th annual U.S. Nationals. For Fuzz Miller, a creditable showing as he also helped put away some of the big names. Here is the one truly great name left in funny car racing. That is the #1 Blue Max, the world champion. Raymond Beadle from Dallas, Texas, does the driving. Racing against Beadle will be Johnny Pott, the driver for Larry Kugel. Earlier, we asked Johnny, do you think you can beat the world champ?
Oh, you bet. I mean, if we get with a little luck and a little more power, we can handle it.
Okay, now what do you do to make more power? You've got to run a 592 funny car.
Well, it's been running a little bit on the lean side today, and we're going to see if we can richen the system up a little bit. And when it's lean, it doesn't run as well. We're going to richen it up a little bit so it should run better.
For Raymond Beadle, he's taking dead aim on that new NHRA national record of 249.30 miles an hour. He set it on the preceding round of eliminations. He must run within 1% of that time to back it up and have it become an official record. For Johnny Pott and Larry Kugel, all they want to do is win. They aren't worrying about records or anything else. And it is Pott giving Beadle a close race. But look at Beadle fly at the finish, and there it is, 6.0 for the elapsed time. But the win and the national record going to Raymond Beadle. As wife Holly and son Ryan look on, Steve Evans is with Jim Dunn.
All right, Big Jim Dunn, his wife helps him get the fire suit off. 30 years you've been drag racing, and once before, what year were you in the final round here in Top Fuel?
Oh, in Top Fuel, it's been so long ago, I don't know, it must have been early 60s.
Since the early 60s, and you were just 5 seconds away. Nothing stands between you and the biggest payday in drag racing history, but Raymond Beadle.
Well, I'll say something I wouldn't have said 4 days ago. I'll guarantee you I'll be runner-up at least.
Ray Beadle takes the Blue Max back to the pits to begin the preparations for his final round race against Big Jim Dunn. You hear the sound of the 2,500 horsepower nitro-burning engines that signify semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator. David Pace against Connie Kalita. Johnny Abbott will be racing Terry Kapp, the defending champion. Here we've got David Pace has completed his burnout, but Connie Kalita is still sitting back. The engine is not started. He's beating on the steering wheel. Kalita watching his competition go through the burnout routine, and yet not a sign of life out of that big engine that's sitting right behind him. Kalita trying to tell his crew exactly what he thinks they should do. The crew member working diligently on it. Kalita beginning to show the frustration of not being able to do anything about the fact that the engine won't start. Just about throwing his hands up in disgust as David Pace backing slowly into the area. Should Kalita be able to fire the car, he could bring it right straight to the starting line. A very short burnout and then come up. Kalita now trying to tell crew chief Ron Barrow exactly what he should do as far as trying to get the starter motor to work. Trying to talk through that face mask and the fire protective equipment that he wears underneath the helmet. But yet nothing seems to be working for Connie Kalita. For David Pace, a very patient and slow, deliberate routine. But for Kalita, oh, he's coming out of the car. That means it's all over. It's a single for David Pace. And it appears that Kalita is angry as he throws his helmet into the cockpit. David Pace brings the Carroll Brothers dragster to the starting line. And here is Kalita trying to start the car. I guess he must be trying to prove to his crew that the starter motor will work, as David Pace just launches off the starting line, then shuts it down. He had an easy go of it in round number one as Frank Bradley red-lighted. Here he had a single, and he saved the motor to go into the finals. For Connie Kalita, tremendous disappointment. He had built himself up to this race. He had been running 570 elapsed times, but now he strides off an unhappy man, having lost here in the semifinal.
Well, every drag racer's dream comes true for David Pace, the final round of the U.S. Nationals.
Got a lot of gifts today. The first round and then this one. It must be our day.
You've had the performance, too, is 250 miles an hour.
Yeah, it shook a little that time, but we just wanted to see what that lane was like.
Is this your first final round appearance in major competition?
No, we were runner-up at Denver at the Mile High, but other than that, this is it. This means a lot more than that one.
And we hear rumors that the Carroll brothers are going to retire. It'd be a nice way to go out.
Sure would. This and maybe one more race, that'll probably do it.
Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
David Pace driving the Carroll Brothers car will race one of these two drivers. Terry Kapp, the wheeler dealer, hails from Canada. He won it all and he's got problems. A year ago, he was the U.S. Nationals champion. He wants to repeat. He's got to get by this round of competition to earn the right to face David Pace, but right now, he's got to trust and hope that his crew can get the car prepared, as there is some problems with the engine. Johnny Abbott is sitting on the opposite side of the track, just waiting for Terry Kapp or for the word from the starter that he will get a single. Right now they're saying let's hold up and wait a few moments as they are still working on Terry Kapp's car. They now begin to back away from it. Apparently it is okay. The starting line crew says bring it forward. Starter Buster Couch looking over, saying for everyone else to clear back and give Terry Kapp and Johnny Abbott racing room. The winner goes into the finals, and a great start by Johnny Abbott. Abbott in the far lane of the track in a close race. He wins it 5.84 seconds, 244 miles an hour. For Terry Kapp, what a disappointment. He had to wait on the starting line, possibly broke his concentration just a little bit. Let's see if we can see Johnny Abbott. Yes, there it was, just a few hundredths of a second ahead of Terry Kapp off the starting line. Now we begin to see Kapp's motor go away. Now Abbott's starting to spit some smoke, but at the finish line, this is one of the closest races you could ever ask for. Johnny Abbott wins it 584 to Terry Kapp's 580.
All right, Johnny Abbott. Terry Kapp came through here. He didn't know who won. Did you realize that you had beat him?
I thought it was really close, and I thought I beat him by about a foot. It was really close. I mean, it was close.
All right, this is something you've dreamed about all your drag racing life, being in a final round of any national event, especially the U.S. Nationals.
Well, we was here in '79, and we didn't make that one, but we're going to try and make this one.
And the points so valuable to you towards the World Championship. You could leave here almost the leader.
Absolutely, and well, we're giving it 110%, Steve.
You may have heard it a little bit that time.
We heard it that time. We really did. where I'd go back and work on it.
And the work is going on over in the funny car pit area here at Raymond Beadle's pit. The engine disassembled as it is between every round. The crew working diligently, and in Jim Dunn's pit area, he's picked up a lot of help as we get ready for the finals at the U.S. Nationals.
That's Gary Kincannon with his favorite rolls. Gary has a lot of rolls in Bentleys, $10 million worth. There's only one wax Gary will use on his priceless collection, Meguiar's. Meguiar's is the brand used by car care professionals. With a $5,000 paint job to protect, Gary won't take a chance on anything but Meguiar's. Even for a car that isn't a Rolls, get the car wax of the professionals, Meguiar's, at these and other fine stores.
As of now, you can fly with the Eagles, because now Goodyear has tamed their racing eagles for the streets.
The threatening clouds that moved in over Indianapolis Raceway Park finally gave way to rain, forcing NHRA officials to call a halt to the racing action just before the finals of Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. The spectators found what shelter they could. The racers continued to do their work in preparation for the one-day postponement of the final rounds. The clouds continue over Raceway Park, but the racing surface itself is dry, and that's what everyone has hoped for. As the track officials prepare for these final rounds, our racers have a great deal of interest in the weather, and Steve tells us why.
David, in one of these rain delay situations, a drag racer has really got to be part weatherman. Raymond Beadle's crew has been intently studying the instruments we see right here. Raymond, tell me, how do you read these and what do they tell you?
Well, what we see with the temperature and stuff, the air's better than we've seen it all weekend. In fact, it's about 1,200 foot better than it was yesterday when we ran.
Meaning what? It's like coming down 1,200 feet in elevation?
That's right. In other words, we're running a lot closer to sea level, so the car should perform better, and they'll make more power today than they did yesterday.
Explain these instruments very briefly, if you can.
Well, two of these instruments here are humidity gauges, and we use one to check the other one. The other one is a temperature gauge. We have one's an air density gauge and one's an altitude gauge, which is used like in an aircraft. And by then we have a formula. We take all four of them, we take the readings in charts, and we can determine what the actual altitude is.
We'll find out in a moment if Ray Beadle and all of his calculations are correct, but right now it is Pro Stock Eliminator. That classic Ford versus Chevrolet battle, which finds the defending champion, Lee Shepherd, #2 in the world last year, to this man, Bob Glidden, in the Ford, who is the reigning world champion. This marks the 21st meeting between these two drivers. They're tied up 10 apiece. Who's going to win the rubber match? Coming into the staging beams, Shepherd against Glidden. And a great start by Lee Shepherd. He builds an immediate lead over Bob Glidden. Can he hold on to the finish? He extends it at the finish line. It is Lee Shepherd. His wife just ecstatic with the big U.S. Nationals victory, $12,500 and some very valuable World Championship Series points going to Bob Glidden. Down in the turnaround area, Steve Evans is waving Lee Shepherd to a stop.
Lee Shepherd of Arlington, Texas, hoping to change that #2 on his window to a #1 before this season is over. And he made a big stride in that direction. Lee Shepherd, congratulations. That's your second U.S. Nationals in a row.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I don't know what to say.
All right, tell me what happened on the starting line.
Well, we just had a little longer staging session than normal, and I went ahead and staged first, and Bob pulled in, and he was a little late, looked like.
Yeah, I think he had a quicker elapsed time.
Yeah, he usually does.
Well, thanks once again to both of you, really, for staging that classic Ford Chevrolet Shepherd Glidden confrontation. We love it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We do, too.
A tremendous race for Pro Stock, and here is another one coming up in the finals of Funny Car Eliminator. The real underdog is Jim Dunn, but he is matched against the Blue Max, the reigning world champion. He has got low elapsed time at 5.91 seconds. He has already established a new national speed record as Raymond Beadle's name goes in the record books at over 249 miles an hour. You talk about a chore, a job cut out for you. Jim Dunn is the man that has got to stop this charge by Raymond Beadle, and it will not happen today as Jim Dunn instantly loses traction. For Raymond Beadle, it is an easy single. Son Ryan, his wife Holly, just as happy as they can be over this big win for Raymond Beadle. And again, some very valuable World Championship points will be going to the Blue Max camp. 6.04 seconds is elapsed time, but he doesn't care at this point as Jim Dunn heads back to his trailer. Raymond Beadle, the winner.
So for Raymond Beadle and the Blue Max, it's their first NHRA National Championship of the year. Raymond's second U.S. Nationals victory. He won back in 1977. Congratulations.
Thank you. I told him money held out, luck would come.
If the money held out, luck could come. Dunn just took a shot at you. Apparently hopped it up too much because he boiled the tires.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know what happened to him. The car, it went out and shook real hard in the middle. We didn't run, I don't think, quite as good as we've been running. But we were just hoping that we didn't smoke the tires.
So apparently taking a little power out of the car because of the air density, as you mentioned, paid off for you.
Yeah, we worked good today. Like I said, it shook pretty hard out in the middle, so I knew it didn't run as good, but I never did steam, so I knew we made a good run.
If you had started this race 6 days ago, you would have not necessarily picked Johnny Abbott or David Pace to be in the final, but they earned their way here on the basis of their performance. For Johnny Abbott, consistent 5:70 elapsed times. The same for David Pace, driving for the Carroll brothers. Pace has made it to the finals once before, and also for Johnny Abbott back in 1979. He was in the finals of this very race, but has yet to win a national title, and it's a red light for David Pace as he leaves the starting line too early. The Carroll brothers car launching off the starting line and leaving that big red light shining. That means Johnny Abbott is the automatic winner. He just coasts across as his family and the crew head down to pick him up. For the last time today, the stagecoach rolls after the Colorado Cowboy. David Pace getting out of his car, a very dejected man. For Johnny Abbott, happiness shows.
David, I don't ever recall anyone racing harder for a U.S. Nationals victory than this man has, Johnny Abbott. It's his first ever NHRA National Championship, and if you got to pick one to win, this is it.
Oh, that was great. That's great, Steve. It really is. I sure didn't believe he was going to red light, though. I thought it was going to be a good car race, that last one, but I got to take it. I just got to. It's been 20 years.
You know, you've said all year long, I'm going to win a race. My car is too good to not win a car race.
That's right, you know, and we work really hard. My crew works really hard. George Willett and Tom McClellan and my whole family, and my wife Elizabeth and my boy, and Bob Harmson with Jolly Rancher. They just do such a good job with us, and I just knew it had to come.
Diamond P Sports would like to congratulate all the winners of this 27th annual U.S. Nationals.
In today's economy, motorcycles never look better. For example, a gas-saving 4-stroke engine, easy riding suspension, and front disc brake. All are standard on Suzuki's low-price GS 450. So you see, the economy never looked better. The new GS 450. Another great performer from Suzuki.
As the champagne celebration continues for Top Fuel champion Johnny Abbott, this is Dave McClellan for Steve Evans saying so long from Indianapolis Raceway Park. The 1981 U.S. Nationals has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagle High Performance Radials, the Racing Eagles Goodyear tamed for the street, and by Suzuki, the Performer. See the full line of Suzuki motorcycles at your local Suzuki dealer. And by Meguiar's Lifetime Polysealant System. Tough polymer protection for your car and a deep, deep shine in one easy step. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by Datsun. Own the new Datsun Turbo 280ZX and you own the road. Goes from 0 to 50 in 5.1 seconds. Now that's awesome. And then some. And by Brute. Today's your Brute day. Great days seem to happen more often when you're wearing Brute by Fabergé. After shower, after shave, after anything, Brute by Fabergé. Additional consideration provided for and a fee paid by...
Very handy thanks to 3-in-1 oil. It fights rust, lubricates, stops squeak. 3-in-1 oil is so easy, even you guys can use it. I do home repairs with plastic wood. I fixed my chair, molded my baseboard, built holes in my wall. Plastic wood is so easy, even you guys can use it.
And by Datsun. Own the new Datsun Turbo 280ZX and you own the road. Goes from 0 to 50 in 5.1 seconds. Now that's awesome and then some. The executive producer of Diamond B Sports is Harvey Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Coverage of the 1981 National Hot Rod Association U.S. Nationals is a Diamond B Sports presentation.